Vladimir Putin frustrated by the way his country's invasion of Ukraine is playing out? That is the conclusion of U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who earlier today said Russia's deadly airstrike on a large military base near Lviv, just miles from the Polish border, is a sign that the Russian president is not happy with the progress of his forces. We're joined now by Lieutenant General Richard Newton to talk over the latest developments in Eastern Europe, and there are a lot of them. General, welcome. As this war approaches the 3-month mark, what do you make of this American government assessment that Putin is growing frustrated and shifting tactics as a result?
Well, good evening, Rudabeh. Again, I'll echo Jake Sullivan's comments earlier today, and that what we're seeing is a more frustrated and certainly more desperate Putin in his onslaught of the Ukrainian people. It also shows that he's willing to take greater risks. These cruise missile attacks, as you reported earlier, killed 35 people. It was only just a few miles from the Polish border, but also put into context, it was only within about 65 miles, my sources tell me, of where the 82nd Airborne has deployed to in recent weeks. So you're right. Now that we're on day 18, the stakes are even gaining more higher in terms of concern.
And so do you think he is shifting his tactics, shifting his strategy westward?
I think he is, for a couple of reasons. Number one, by the way, the center of the fight, the focus of the fight is still the capital, Kyiv, and trying to get at President Zelensky. But also it's showing that he has a greater range and he can strike targets in the West. His deputy foreign minister on Saturday said that NATO and U.S. efforts to resupply Ukrainian military are considered legitimate targets. And so that's what we saw, again, just a couple hours or so ago in the strike on this Ukrainian military facility. Also, that is a route that the millions of refugees are on. And so it puts at risk, fleeing refugees. And so, yes, he's definitely at least trying to change the narrative, may not necessarily the focus. The focus is still Kyiv, however.
And another development today, it looks like China is now going to have to actually pick a side. Russia now asking China for military assistance in its invasion. How do you see this playing out?
Very interesting. The stakes and the level of brinkmanship are really at the geopolitical level. And this is where all of our instruments of national power, especially diplomacy, needs to play here, that we maybe not necessarily front and center in the public, but back channel, let the Chinese know that we will not tolerate them interfering with either preventing Russia from taking the full brunt of our sanctions, nor do we want them to pick sides. We want them to stay off the chessboard, if you will, and so that the world can focus on this invasion that Putin has rained terror down on the Ukrainian people.
How do you think they will, though? Do you think they will? Do you think China will stay neutral? What is in its best interest? And based on what you know about China and its regime and its history, do you think it will stay neutral?
Well, my travels in China and dealing to some degree with the People's Liberation Army, it tells me that they're, first off, they're not in a hurry to make a decision. They take sometimes years and norms moving forward on their strategy. And anything that's in the best interest of China alone will, again, suit them in terms of their course of action. What really what suits them right now is having the United States bogged down. And anything that bogs down the United States will help advance them, both not only necessarily just militarily, but economically and financially, as they're striving to march towards being a sole superpower in the world. But we've got to pay very close attention to China, especially as the days and weeks move forward here in Ukraine. We've got to keep them as neutral as we possibly can, using a variety of tools that we may or may not be able to use, certainly publicly, but back channel as well.
And shifting back now to Ukraine, talk about the Javelin missiles we've been sending, because they do seem to be pretty effective against the Russians, but are they enough?
Well, they have been very effective. And by the way, the United States and NATO needs to abundantly provide military tools and capabilities to the Ukrainians as they come out of supply. One of them is the Javelin, as you mentioned, the anti-tank missile, and then there's also the Stinger, which is anti-air defense. But that's very important because the Russians are bogged down. They are off their timeline, as I've been saying for so many evenings, but they are getting prepared for an onslaught, which will be street-by-street attack into Kyiv. But it's very important that we continue to resupply them, not only with again, what I would say kinetic fires of those Javelin and Stingers, but also medical supplies and food and water and so forth. But the Russians are definitely off their timeline. And the fact that, again, they have not shown really any advanced capabilities, such as being able to integrate air and ground capabilities, or even combined arms, such as infantry with tanks and tanks with, again, engineering, combat engineering, and so forth. So these capabilities that we're providing the Ukrainians are essential. They have been essential to date, but they're going to be essential for the next several weeks as well, Rutabaga.
Yeah, and the U.S. and Russia both accusing each other of false flag attacks, and now there are fears that Putin will actually use chemical weapons. We know he's capable of that based on his helping Assad in Syria use them against his own people. How big of a concern is this?
Well, that is my biggest concern, is that the war will escalate, and it will escalate through weapons of mass destruction. It could be through chemical weapons or tactical nuclear weapons. In his playbook, in Putin's playbook, but also in Soviet era playbook, is that they will escalate in order to de-escalate, the conflict. And so one of the tools that he could escalate and really put NATO on its heels potentially is the use of chemical weapons. Besides, it would also lower the threshold, not only in terms of what the conditions on the ground would be in the case of Ukraine, but other actors out there in the future. The fact that if Putin was willing to use chemical weapons or nuclear weapons in this case, it would open the door, I think, for others as well. So this is a very serious potential here. Also, it's one where, again, I know the Biden administration is looking very closely not to escalate tensions in any stretch if we possibly can, because of, again, the escalation aspect of these weapons of mass destruction.
And what would that look like? How would that play out on the ground if he were to use those weapons?
Well, a couple ways it could play out. One, let's just stick with the chemical weapons scenario. That would be extraordinarily in terms of destructive against human life, and also against various aspects of the terrain, and that could leave the life there wherever that chemical attack took place untenable for years. It would also open up the again that opportunity for, if he uses them once, he would then have the propensity to use them perhaps multiple times. Ways he could do that or demonstrate that is he could, for instance, with a chemical weapon or even with a tactical nuclear weapon, he could show a demonstration of the use of those capabilities against perhaps an open target out in a field somewhere, or perhaps in another area that would be perhaps benign. But he shows the intent and the capability to deliver those chemical weapons. And he says, you would have, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to use this on a population and so forth. That's where it would be absolutely terrifying. And I think that, again, all bets are off at that point.
Sobering thought. All right, Lieutenant General, we'll check back in with you in the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.